Blake Lively is admitting defeat.
I feel like this is the beginning of a defeat for Blake Lively.
Hear from Lively. She is attempting to withdraw. She is trying to partially dismiss without prejudice, basically her emotional distress, all that stuff.
They do not want the medical records to be compelled, and they would like all of this to be dismissed. And Judge Lehman has just come back, and he has very much decided in favor of Team Baldoni. So this is a major win for Team Baldoni.
Did Blake Lively just wave the white flag in her legal war, or is she setting the stage for an even bigger ambush?
No surprise, I've had a pretty intense year.
In a jaw-dropping twist, Blake has officially moved to drop her emotional distress claims in her ongoing lawsuit against Justin Baldoni and the Wayfarer team.
I am so excited. You guys have no idea how badly I needed this win. I needed this win today.
But before you think this is a clean-cut surrender, think again. There's a massive catch buried in the legal filings.
She has said that she has been emotionally distressed. So why is she suddenly abandoning those two most pertinent claims? Okay, those two claims where it just outright spells that they inflicted upon her all this emotional distress.
One that could allow her to bring those explosive claims right back when it suits her.
The answer is simple. It's obvious. It's what I said was coming all along. It's because of the phase of discovery.
Is this a clever legal strategy or a desperate maneuver to hide sensitive medical records? And most importantly, what does this mean for Justin Baldoni's defense?
But Justin's side has filed back saying, not so fast.
Stick with us as we break down every calculated move, every sneaky filing, and what this all means for the future of this high-profile case.
Overall, you think this is going to go through or it's not?
You're going to deny the motion. It's only because the claims were dismissed with prejudice. If they're without prejudice, then we still want that motion to be granted. And I think it's a good follow through and good advocacy for Baldoni's side.
Late last night, new filings dropped that flipped the narrative in the Blake Lively lawsuit saga. In a surprising move, Blake's legal team filed a request to partially dismiss some of her claims, specifically those tied to emotional distress, including both intentional and negligent infliction of distress. Now, that's not just legal housekeeping. That's a strategic retreat from one of the most impactful elements of any civil case. Emotional distress is where big jury payouts happen. So why would she let that go?
What I can say without going too into it is that this year has been full of the highest highs and the lowest lows of my life.
Well, not so fast. She didn't dismiss them with prejudice, which would permanently eliminate those claims from the case.
Honestly, it's no surprise I've had a pretty intense year and
No, she asked for a dismissal without prejudice. That means she can bring them back later, potentially after avoiding the most invasive part of discovery. In simpler terms, Blake wants out of emotional distress claims for now, just long enough to keep her medical and mental health records private, but she wants the option to reintroduce them if things start going south in court.
Because now she's not going to be forced to provide those medical records regarding her psychological status when you assert claims for emotional distress. The other side is entitled to have their own doctor examine you, and that can be pretty invasive. She has agreed to dismiss those claims without prejudice, which would give her the right to reassert them.
Attorney Ron Zambrano broke it all down, and he wasn't buying Blake's nothing to see here approach.
Basically, her emotional distress, all that stuff. Can you sort of explain what we're looking at and what this request
from? There are separate legal theories that are emotional distress based. So one is intentional infliction of emotional distress. You drove your car into my house while I was watching, and that caused me suffering, right? And the same thing can be with negligent infliction of emotional distress. So that's a legal theory that's based on the harm of emotional distress. But that doesn't mean she can't ask for the non-economic damages through the other remaining claims, such as harassment or hostile work environment.
According to Ron, this is far from a quiet retreat. This is a tactical decision to dodge a legal landmine. The emotional distress claims would open the door for Justin Baldoni's legal team to demand full access to Blake's private medical and psychological history, a move she clearly wants to avoid.
Now, and because she's asking for it without prejudice, that also, from what I'm gathering, opens up that she could bring it up later, correct?
Right. So if the dismissal is without prejudice, that means that as long as it's within the statutory, the statute of limitations, she's allowed to bring them back in a timely way. And Baldoni's folks are not really happy with that, because it is true. You can't, if you're going to get rid of it to get away, to avoid what she wants to avoid, which is not having the identifying her medical and mental health providers, then let's put this to rest for it to never come back. And I think that's a fair thing to ask in the middle of litigation.
And she's not alone. Any plaintiff claiming emotional distress faces this same hurdle. If you say your mental health suffered, the defense has the right to dig in and see what else could have caused that distress. It's the cost of doing legal business, and Blake is trying to skip that step, while reserving the right to cash in on it later. That's why Justin Baldoni's lawyers are fighting back hard. They don't want this claim dropped without finality. They're demanding that if Blake is going to remove emotional distress from the case, she needs to do it with prejudice, meaning it's gone forever, no takebacks.
But Justin's side has filed back saying, not so fast. Very quickly saying, look, if you're going to withdraw this, then it needs to be with prejudice to ensure it can't be refiled. They have a motion already out to get her medical records, and clearly that seems to be the sticking point here, the pressure point that they've achieved. Well, if you're going to declare emotional distress, we get to see more of your medical records, etc., etc.
And their reasoning is airtight. Without prejudice means Blake conduct discovery now, then reintroduce the claim later when it's too late to gather evidence. That's what legal insiders call sharp practice, a kind of sneaky courtroom gamesmanship, and Justin's team isn't having it.
She clearly does not want to do that, understandably, but that makes this more complicated. So motions are out, things have already been made to ask for them to, well, okay, we dismiss it with prejudice, and without prejudice rather, so we can maybe decide later, puts Justin's camp in a terrible position where now they're screwed. If she wants to say no during this discovery period, they don't get to get it, and then if she refiles it, they can't go get it then either, correct?
Here's where the pressure really comes in. Justin's team had already filed a motion asking the court to force Blake to hand over the names of her medical and mental health providers, the first step in getting her records through a subpoena. And just as that motion was gaining traction, Blake tried to pull her emotional distress claims, essentially saying, well, if I'm not asking for emotional distress anymore, you don't need those records, right? Wrong. Justin's attorneys say the court should still grant their motion, or at the very least only deny it if Blake dismisses with prejudice. Otherwise, they're being put in an impossible spot. They don't get the records now, and if she brings the claims back later, they'll never get them. This is the ultimate game of legal chicken, and the court is being forced to decide if Blake's maneuver is legitimate or too clever for its own good. So what will the judge do? According to legal expert Ron Zambrano, the judge has a few options. Force Blake to dismiss the claims with prejudice, a full win for Justin's side. Allow the dismissal without prejudice, but still grant Justin's motion to identify her providers, just in case she tries to bring the claim back later. Or the judge might deny the motion altogether for now, and leave the door open to revisit it if Blake reintroduces the claims later. But either way, it's clear that Blake is walking a legal tightrope. This isn't a routine filing. It's a pivotal moment in the case, and it signals that Blake may be backing down from one of her strongest damages arguments.
So that would be the fear that Baldoni's lawyers would have, that if she would refile, that it would be past the discovery cutoff, and that the circumstances would be they can't do any more discovery for the things that they're giving up now. I don't think that would really happen. I think the judge would see what happened, would see what we call sharp practice, which is basically like being sneaky. But here you brought up this thing of the motion itself. So they have a motion set that this letter asks, like, hey, I want you to grant this motion ordering her to give us the identity of these people so that we can go get those documents through a subpoena. And what Lively's trying to do, like, hey, I'm going to get rid of these anyway, so you, court, don't really have to order me to do anything, because look, I'm not asking for this stuff anymore, so no harm, no foul, deny the motion. And as all good litigants do, you don't want a motion to be dismissed on what would be a procedural technicality, going, well, like, there's no issue, like, the thing is moot, there's no claim anymore. And I think they're right to ask, like, no, if you're going to deny the motion, it's only because the claims were dismissed with prejudice. If they're without prejudice, then we still want that motion to be granted. And I think it's a good follow through and good advocacy for Baldoni's side.
Now, let's step back for a second. Because this legal drama goes beyond just emotional distress, Blake has argued from the start that her company, Blake Brown Hair Care, was destroyed by Justin Baldoni's alleged retaliation campaign. But recent reports from the beauty industry tell a different story. Multiple sources now suggest that Blake's brand started to tank well after the alleged retaliation during the actual lawsuit period, when public drama was at its peak, retail giants like Target are reportedly seeing plummeting performance for her products, and the trend only got worse after Blake filed suit. That raises a huge red flag for the court. Is this really about retaliation, or is her business just failing on its own? And if that's the case, her claims for economic damages, i.e. lost profits, become incredibly shaky. Why? Because courts don't allow speculative damages. You need to prove that your business losses were caused by the defendant, not by your own mismanagement or a bad market response. If her numbers don't back that up, those claims might crumble too. Even worse for Blake, her timeline for damages is closing fast. Why? Because once she filed her lawsuit and the New York Times article dropped, the court is likely to say, that's where your damage claim ends. Why? Because anything that happened after she filed, including Justin's responses, is considered protected legal action. You can't sue someone for defending themselves in court. That means Blake's potential economic damages, even if they hold up, are limited to a tiny window between the alleged retaliation and the lawsuit filing. That's a sliver of time, and if her numbers don't show massive losses in that exact window, she's got a problem. So let's put this all together. Blake drops her emotional distress claims, the most dramatic and potentially high-dollar part of her case, but she tries to keep the door open to reintroduce them later, a move Justin's team is actively fighting. Her economic damage claims are on shaky ground, with outside data showing her brand was already in decline, and the legal window for those damages is shrinking fast, cutting off the ability to blame Justin for anything that happened during the lawsuit process. The result, this is a major legal win for Justin Baldoni and his team. Even if Blake's case moves forward, she's now asking the jury for less money, with less emotional appeal, and based on weaker financial evidence. Her legal exposure and her chance at a big payday just nosedived, and from a PR standpoint, this opens her up to an even bigger risk. If she now tries to play the victim by saying, they tried to invade my privacy, Justin's team will likely fire back with, you wanted millions for emotional distress. You opened that door yourself. So, has Blake Lively really admitted defeat? Or is this all just part of a long con, a way to retreat and regroup before taking another shot? Whatever the answer, one thing is clear. The tide in this lawsuit is turning, and if this latest move is any indication, Justin Baldoni's defense just scored one of its biggest wins yet. We'll be watching closely to see what the judge decides next, and whether Blake's team dares to bring those emotional claims back from the dead. Don't forget to subscribe for more exclusive breakdowns, and tell us in the comments, is this a smart legal move by Blake, or is she just trying to dodge the consequences of her own lawsuit? Let me know if you'd like this split into chapters, edited for voiceover, or trimmed for a specific platform.